back to the homestead, y'all. I just wanted to give you an update on some of our berry bushes and our fruit trees. It's been a week today since we had that hard freeze. Our blueberries are looking good. We did lose some blooms. We may have, I looked around on the ground, we may have lost about 10% of the blooms that were open at the time. But the rest of the berry bushes, they're looking great. They're putting out new blooms. The blooms that were on them during the freeze are opening up. The bees are out pollinating them. There's bees all over the place on these bushes. The apple trees are doing good. They're blooming out good. I'm going to take you over here to the mulberry trees and show you they're not doing so good, unfortunately. But that's part of it. You know, when you have fruit trees and berry bushes, sometimes you do lose. This bush right over here did lose more blooms than any of the others, even though it's the same kind. I'm not sure what happened. It may have had a few blooms that were opened up more than what these had, but for the most part, it looks like our blueberries are doing good. We're still not out of the woods yet. Last year we had a freeze all the way in May. But as long as these blooms get pollinated and they set their berries, then generally we should be okay. Hopefully if we do get another freeze, it won't be for very long. Hopefully it'll be right at daylight. It'll get down below freezing for just a little bit. As long as it's under 30 minutes, I really don't worry about it. But once you get over 30 minutes and you get into an hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours of below freezing, then that always concerns me. But I'll take you over here and we'll look at the mulberry trees. This is the mulberry tree we looked at right after the freeze. They're all the same way, the mulberry bushes are. It killed all the leaves. They're all brown and crunchy, and every bit of it. All the blooms were killed. They were froze completely, which we knew they were. I mean, we looked at it right after the freeze, and I took some pictures, some still pictures, and put in the video. I can see new growth starting. There's little bitty buds starting to come out on this. This has never happened before to me with these mulberry trees, so I don't know what's going to happen, whether they'll put off more blooms or not. I kind of doubt it. I think these little buds that are coming out are going to be the new leaves. But I'm going to keep an eye on it and see what it does and then document it so that way I know in the future. But now these trees were extremely early. They normally bloom at the end of April and the beginning of May. And they were blooming on April 1st. They already had little mulberries set. And April 2nd when we got the hard freeze. But it's just a complete loss, total loss on the mulberries. There's nothing left, no leaves, no fruit, nothing. It just makes me sad, but like I said, I can see new sprouts coming out here on every one of these. It's been a week today, so hopefully in another week I'll be able to tell whether these are leaves or whether it's going to try to bloom again. But my guess is that it's just going to be leaves, that it won't bloom again. If it does, it'll really surprise me. But we'll see. I want to take you up here and show you some of the peach trees and the cherry trees we looked at right after the freeze also. All right, this is one of our young peach trees that we looked at right after the freeze. There's still blooms on it. A lot of these blooms, I've been watching them. These were closed when we had the freeze. Most of the blooms that were open when we had the hard freeze, most of those fell off. I looked down on the ground every day. I'd come out here and check it, and most of the blooms that were completely open when we had the hard freeze fell off. So that tells me those aren't going to produce any fruit. But a lot of these blooms were closed. Now all the blooms that were closed are still on here, or pretty much all of them. There's still several per branch. It's been a week now. I have noticed there's a couple of them that have set fruit already. So that means they have a seed. I've checked the ovary on several of these blooms and they got pollinated and they have a seed in it. So we are going to get some fruit off this peach tree. But it's just not going to be as much as it would have if it wasn't a freeze. Of course, like I said before, most of the time we go through here and cut off any of the fruit and leave just 1 or 2 peaches per branch. So that way it doesn't get overweighted and the tree can put more energy into that fruit. So you'll have a better quality fruit. You just won't have as many, and that's perfectly fine with us. We have all kinds of peach trees, so as long as we get quite a bit off of each tree, Even if it's just 2 peaches per branch, that's plenty for Christy and I. But I'm going to still keep an eye on this. I'll still keep checking the blooms, checking the ovaries, and making sure that it's setting the seed on it. And then I'll come back in a few weeks and we'll look at this one more time and we'll see how the freeze affected it. But as you can see, it has plenty of new growth as far as leaves go. This tree did not have near this many leaves last week. So if you didn't see that video, I'll put the link for those 2 videos that we did before the freeze and after the freeze. And that way you can compare the leaves, how much they've grown, and also you can see the blooms that are on these trees. But we'll go up here and we'll look at the Black Tartarian cherry now, and that's one of them we videoed before and after the freeze also. Okay, this is our young cherry tree. It's a Black Tartarian cherry, and this one had a ton of blooms open on it, and it had several that were closed. I've been watching it all week. The bees have still been pollinating it all week. And I've checked several of these flowers and checked several of the blooms. Like this one, you can see the blooms already completely dried. But when I open the bloom up and look at the ovary inside, there's a seed. And it's still hard. So that tells me that that bloom is going to produce fruit. So all these blooms that you see, or pretty much all of them, if they got pollinated, you can look right at the bottom of the bloom and you'll see just a little round bud, and you can squeeze that just a little bit, and if it feels hard, then you know that's going to produce fruit. You can do the same things with the peach trees and the apple trees. That's the seed that is set inside the ovary of the bloom. So if you see that, then you know you're going to have fruit on that tree. This thing is loaded with blooms. I've been checking it every day, and every one of them look good. This tree did the best out of all our trees. This Black Tartarian cherry tree, it had the most blooms on it that were open during the freeze, and I haven't found not one bad bloom. I've checked probably 8 or 10 over this week, 8 or 10 blooms, and every one of them had a seed inside of it. So that tells me that this tree is doing fine. If you have any questions or comments about fruit trees, leave it below, and I'll try to get to them as quick as I can. If you're not a subscriber, please click the subscribe button, and thanks for watching. I just want to give Miss Kathleen over at My Alabama Farm Life a quick shout out and tell her thank you very much for your kind words. She made a video and gave us a shout out on it, and she had some really nice things to say, and thank you so much, Miss Kathleen. That is so sweet. I hope your fruit trees and berry bushes are doing well. We got lucky this time. Most of our fruit trees and berry bushes are doing great except for our mulberries. But Miss Kathleen, if you haven't checked her out yet, I'll put a link to her channel in the description below. Go check her out. She's doing a great job on her homestead. She's made it through her first year, which is usually your toughest year because you're trying to figure things out, trying to figure out when to plant, what to plant, and everything that goes along with starting a homestead. Miss Kathleen, I wish you the best of luck, and if you need any help from us, you know how to reach me.